Good evening and welcome to the Monmouth City Council meeting for Tuesday, November 6th. And I'd like to call the meeting to order. And roll call, please, Phyllis.
Councillor Belts. Present. Councillor Carey.
Here.
Councillor Johnson.
Here.
Councillor Sharmer. Here. Councillor Schinkel.
Here.
Councillor Silbernagle.
Here.
Mayor Milligan.
Here. Will you all please rise for the flag salute? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So tonight we've got a lengthy agenda, so I kind of wanted to go over some of the things to see if there was some that maybe we can take out and move to a later date. The work session, we have two items, which was the proposed amendments to the Monmouth zoning ordinance and the transportation project discussion. Both of these are going to be policy discussions, and the transportation is going to be a review of what's coming up. It's going to be like a 30,000-foot view of the transportation projects. Seeing that there's going to be some results for election tonight, and the potential is it could be a different makeup. Scott and I talked about this, and it's a likelihood that it would be easier if both of these were addressed by the new council rather than us hearing it and then have to go through it with the new councilors who aren't here tonight.
Wait, it might be the same councilors.
It might not be.
It might not be.
And so it's like neither of these are urgent items that have to be done tonight or in December, so they could be postponed until January if necessary. How are you guys for?
Is there, I'm in concurrence, however, I wonder if there's any tension on the second item of the work session agenda, the amendments relative to especially short-term vacation rentals.
So a couple of things there, just to back up on one. The transportation one, we're just starting the discussion. Just here's all these things we could do. There's going to be lots of iterations before you get to any kind of a plan. That can obviously wait. The short-term one, the zoning ones, there's progress been made. So a little bit of a delay wouldn't be too bad, but we wouldn't want to necessarily defer it. That one, I think, is a little bit more direct. And we could also take a look at, if we deferred one of these, just do it indefinite at this point, and then we can make a decision whether it goes on to December 1 or into January. But those are nothing critical. Like the short-term rentals, that's more of a summer issue, so it's not like it's a big thing right now.
I just wondered if there was someone who was ready to launch something, and they're waiting. They're waiting for us to act so they could begin promoting an Airbnb deal. It's not this summer.
It's probably the opposite. They're probably just doing it right now. Then we'll see how the rules come out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyone want to keep those on the work session agenda? Okay, so we'll take those both off. And then also,
Was that 3 there?
2 and 3.
2 and 3.
2 and 3,
Yeah.
okay.
And then just for order of the whole evening, what I'd like to do is do the regular meeting, then we'll do the Urban Renewal Agency meeting, then we'll do the work session, and then we'll go to the executive session. Since there's some people here that are waiting probably for a decision out of the Urban Renewal Agency. And then we can move forward with that. So with that, bring us back to our agenda item, the consent calendar. 2 items in there are the council meeting for October, the minutes for the council meeting for October 16th, and the minutes for the council work session for the same evening. Do I have a motion?
I move approval of both.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Same sign. And it passes unanimously. On to reports, I don't have a whole lot to report on, but I do want to say that Halloween afternoon, I stopped by City Hall, and there was a steady stream of trick-or-treaters coming in the door. A lot of families congregating in the downtown area. It was really fun to see that many families taking advantage of our spooktacular, wasn't it spooktacular, event that day. And I saw lots of pictures in the library, and a lot of businesses downtown had a lot of trick-or-treaters. And then on to some other business. There's 2 appointments that I'd like to make. Randy Lowry to the Planning Commission and Shirley Reed to the Retail Recruitment Monmouth Engaged Committee. So if I could get a motion to...
I would move approval of both.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed, like sign. All right. They'll be receiving letters shortly to get them connected with their commission and committee. Now we move on to reports of council representatives for boards and commissions. Councilor Silvernagel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Monmouth Senior Advisory Board met on October 23rd. I was not able to attend, but I do have their minutes and a couple of highlights. Veterans Day Annual Breakfast is on November 12th, so that's coming up here in a few days. 8:30 to 10:30. There's no charge. They are accepting donations if someone offers. They had their meet and greet on October 3rd, and evidently they had 13 in attendance. That's pretty good again. They have now an additional 9 new members also since then, so this month. And they now have just over 300 members for the senior center. So that's really good numbers. Breakfast is this coming couple weeks from now. Saturday, December 1st will be the first of the month breakfast again. That concludes my report.
All right. Councilor Johnson.
I had a hearing, did not adjourn.
Okay. All right. Councilor Sharma.
I'm reporting on the tree board, and they met on October 18th. And first of all, the most important thing going on is that this coming Saturday, there will be a volunteer work party that's part of our fall tree planting ceremony. Members of the community have been invited, and there will be, you just stop me at any point if I mix something up. Members of the community have been invited to help with this, and there are leadership students from WU who will be there. Parents who come to Madrona Park often talk about how hot it is to sit in the sun while their kids are playing on the equipment, and they've said that they'd like to have some shade trees planted. So that's one of the things that the work party will be doing. The members of the board are identifying trees that provide a good amount of shade and are sturdy enough. The board also talked about taking care of the trees after they're planted, to get a water bag around them so that they don't suffer from drought stress. And then the board also noticed that there are some dead trees along the highway in front of the storage units, and those would also be good places to plant some trees. And then in addition, the university would like to partner with the city of Monmouth to put Tree Campus USA signs up around the campus. So Suzanne is helping with that, and that would be a good project for both the university and the city to undertake. So thank you very much. Don't forget, Saturday, November 10th, 9 a.m. to noon, Madrona Park. Be there, be square.
All right, thanks. Councilor Carey.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the MINET board met on November 1st. I was not there, was unable to attend. One of the things that happened at that meeting that you should have been receiving an email from me on was the report on the first year of the 5-year strategic plan. I wasn't there, Scott was, and so I've asked Scott to report on that in my stead. So.
Yeah, so just go through a couple items. Finances are doing very well. We're really stable, doing good shape there. Sales pretty much standard right there. Operations, a couple things. One was an interesting event. we had a pretty big outage in Independence, and it was based on a squirrel dropping into a conduit box and couldn't get out, so he decided maybe he needed a snack, so kept going until he took out the fiber. So, and it wasn't the best idea on his part, but probably different levels. So we did have that happen operationally. Otherwise, a nice one, we actually have 1,000 new customers on the new pond systems. That's the core operating system, so we actually hit 1,000 on that. Interesting note with our move with Willamette Valley going over to Dallas is right now, in the past, when we were doing all like the head-end work for this new system, 100% purchased by MyNet. Now we're allocating to MyNet and Willamette Valley Fiber, so we're already seeing those benefits of moving forward there. And then onto the strategic plan. I had some copies here. No, you did get that previously. And so this is the strategic plan that went through at the board approved, and this is the first report on it. And the key finding in there is that they're exceeding all of their targets. So all their financials, more revenue, less expense. So the nice one there is that that's the core operation that is improving, getting better financials. And then that's not even adding in all these new things that with the new partnership that will be better off. And just one last note from MyNet that kind of gets back to some of those notes is they ran up a projection for next May when we do the next debt payment, and it's clocking in like over 80%. So they'll be covering over 80%. Nice progress, big progress. So that's it then.
Scott, I saw somewhere the other day, I think it came in my mail, a flyer, was it from Charter or Comcast advertising gigabyte speed internet?
Yeah.
What do you know about that?
Oh, I just think they're doing some upgrades, so there's some different things available.
Okay. But MyNet's still going to dominate the market here.
Oh, yeah.
It's not-
And ours, you have to remember, is never cut. We don't share, so
Okay.
we can guarantee 24/7 it's going to hit that. Other systems, not so much.
Except for squirrels.
Squirrel? Yeah, the squirrel.
Squirrels.
You know, I think it's worth noting on that, though, that as MyNet is becoming, you know, more efficient, more, you know, the greater footprint now, Charters is coming hard.
Yes.
I mean, this is a slick Madison Avenue deal that they're circling, doesn't have anything to do with Monmouth, but that's what they're talking about. So it's, they're coming hard, they'll come hard, you know, for MyNet, and hopefully we can withstand that. But it is what it is, competitive, volatile field, as we all know.
And with that, are there any community announcements? I'd like to make sure everybody knows about Making Spirits Bright, coming up on November 24th and November 30th are the two dates. I believe there'll be activities throughout the week in Main Street Park.
If I could?
Sure.
Yeah, so the main event is November 24th, that's after Thanksgiving, and so it's kind of traditional event with entertainment vendors in the park, and then at 5 o'clock we'll flip the lights. Then the key things, then it kind of rolls around because we also wanted to tie it in with the tree lighting. And then so a nice one we're going to do there is the one thing that happens is the tree lighting occurs, everybody flushes back into the downtown for the restaurant, so we actually recruited 3 food carts that are going to be set up, so we'll have some additional food options at that time. And one I wanted to note, I mean, it's kind of under the radar a little bit, but we talk periodically, well, we need some more events, and can't we cooperate better with like the university, and how do we get, you know, businesses involved? It's hard to get folks motivated outside their normal activities. The Making Spirits Bright Committee is exactly that. That triggered off of a University Connections Committee, so there's university people, citizens, local businesses, city staff, all working together on the organizing. Businesses are stepping up to take part in the passport program, donate. We actually had a business donate one of the lights. We're going to get 5 more lights that we'll be able to put in the park. And so that's a real success. I mean, this is something that people just keep talking about, and this event is here. It's the first year, and we're going to keep building it from there. But I think one of those times it's just exactly what everybody wanted was people coming together, working together, and getting something done, and it's going to happen.
And with that, Scott, you want to just go on with your city manager report?
Okay. We'll start out with the financial report.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councilors. Can't believe it's already been 1/4 of the way through fiscal 18-19, and things are looking fairly good so far. I won't read through the whole report, but I did want to mention a few of the highlight some of the highlights that I have already highlighted for you. The first one is the Comcast settlement, which I know is kind of a surprise because we don't really have Comcast operating in this area, but that's one of the pluses of how the property tax system works. It would have been to our detriment had we been collecting from Comcast all this time elsewhere in the county, and they had won on appeal, then we would have had to have paid our share. But luckily, the state did prevail with their appeal, and so Comcast now paid a substantial amount to the entire state, and we benefited to the tune of about $44,000 between our own city coffers in the general fund and the urban renewal district and the police bonds. So that was some really nice good news. And the other good news that I'm seeing so far, of course I don't want to count on it, but the marijuana taxes are coming in a little ahead of what we predicted. Still nowhere near what we had hoped the previous year when we were budgeting, but potentially some of the concerns about the lower market pricing may still prevail, but apparently I'm learning a lot that I didn't know about marijuana, but edibles are apparently selling really well, and not so much the flower, and that is, that's where the pricing differential is having some impact. This is what I understand from my revenue sources anyway. So as far as revenues go, those would be the two highlights. Then moving on, I wanted to also just mention in the street fund, while we are seeing that highway tax revenues are coming in a little higher, keep in mind that we also are users of gasoline, so that may have an impact, although we did predict that gas prices would go up, and they are about where we thought, or about where we were estimating that they would be, so I'm not too concerned about that piece going over budget, but again, just something to be aware of. Scott already referenced the MyNet debt service payment being, them making very good progress. 80% is what they're projecting for the next quarter, and when you combine that with the substantial payment that they've made already this quarter, they will probably be lower than 300,000 of the 400,000 that we budgeted that we would need to pay in from Power and Light. So that's actual very realistic progress, and I've been attending the finance board meetings or the finance committee meetings, I should say, for MyNet, and been very impressed with the progress that they're making on the debt service, and they're allowing for reserves in that. It's not that they're just willy-nilly offering up all of their cash reserves to us for debt payment, and we are trying not to jeopardize the business model, I guess would be the bottom line. So I think that is looking very promising. The SDC funds, I also wanted to just bring that one to your attention. That reflects a little bit on the audit results that we have heard about so far. I will tell you, and I'll probably talk a little bit more about it when I do my department annual report a little later, but the auditors were extremely impressed with the finance department staff and the departmental staff and their responsiveness. Again, I have many nice things that I will share with you later. The one area that I think, unfortunately, we will get a comment in a letter about is our past practice has been, as you know, for us to tell you as we're encountering situations where we think we're going to go over budget, and then at the end of the year we true up at the end of the year. Their interpretation of local budget law is that you need to have the resolution in place before you spend. And that is something that I have understood in the past, but I believe that the previous auditors either didn't test for or didn't have the same interpretation, because I did look back on previous years, and there have been times when that has occurred in the past, but it has never been called out. So these auditors are really, doing a great job. Frankly, they're working with us as a team to try and make sure that we are in compliance. And so all of that to say that with the way that I have set up the not doing the budgeting at the category level, I'm a lot less worried that that will happen this year. There are all kinds of reasons why you shouldn't budget at the category level, not just to avoid having to come to council every time, but just from a pure management by departments of their funding. So anyway, all of that to say, I wanted you to be aware of that because, again, it would have happened this year. We would not have been prepared. We would have had to have spent before we were able to come to you with a resolution unless we called an emergency council meeting. So, and which is not reasonable because we have appropriations for our SDCs, plenty of appropriations, plenty of fund balance. So it's one of those situations that I feel very comfortable that the auditors will work with us and we will not have a situation in the future. Lastly, I wanted to draw your attention, if you had a chance to look at the investment report, I did a little, I added some features to it. That's at the back of your council report, and it's been the same for quite some time. And so as I looked at trying to make it a more useful report for you, I added in some comparatives from prior years of our interest earnings to show you that we are doing better. Obviously, interest rates are going up. That is both a good thing and a bad thing. But in this particular case, we're getting a little bit more bang for our buck, if you will, and still all in the local government investment pool. I did also add some benchmarks of the 30-day Treasury bills and the 2-year Treasury notes, just to give you an idea of how well the local government investment pool performs relative to those benchmarks, considering it is liquid funds and we pay negligible amounts in fees. We pay literally 15 cents a month usually if we do several transfers. So, so really it is a very good deal. However, we are seeing in the 2-year range, you know, that we could go out a little further considering we have some balances that are in reserve that we can't spend anyway in our SDCs unless we have a particular reason to spend them. So I'm hoping to investigate whether it would be worthwhile putting $1 million or $2 million out into the markets within the context of our existing investment policy. But then there's the trade-off of how much that will cost for safekeeping and so forth. So I just wanted you to be aware that I am monitoring this and that that's something that I wanted you to know about. And with that, I'll take any questions you have.
Thank you for all that good news.
Well, I'm happy we changed just for a different view. That was my point. And I see it's paid off highly in the last year and a half. So I hope it continues on. Thank you for going with them, and this is a great report. I've asked you about some other stuff on it, but you answered all my questions, so thank you.
Any other questions?
I just have a small one on to the MyNet fund. In your note on the second page, you note that the check was not deposited until October 2nd, which required, you know, some other transfers there. What's the deal on that?
Sure. Actually, that was one of Councilor Johnson's questions as well, and I should have expanded on that. Yes, typically, as you know, we transfer at the end of the year once we know from Power and Light to MyNet, we transfer an amount up to $400,000 we would have transferred this year. I ended up transferring $104,000 this year because of the fact that I didn't want to have the MyNet incur the postage when I was going the very next day. They cut the check on the 30th. Rather than make a special trip or have them mail it to us, I waited till the next day when the meeting occurred. And so I just did the transfer before that. So I did $104,000 to cover that off. And so the net result is there's no impact to the fund per se, but it's just a timing.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know it was that somebody dropped the ball on that.
Oh, no. John had the check cut and he said, do you want to just pick it up? And I said, that's fine, we can cover it. We had made the debt service payment 2 weeks before. So in the terms of the amount of interest, and like I said, for the sake of the environment, I thought, let's just wait 20 minutes.
Thank you for that. Okay, then the next question I was, once again in the narrative, relative to the Winnipeg Fund.
Yes.
And there's been some discussion around their new 501c3 status and you know, about whether we can be transferring any appropriations or any of that. What is the impact of that, of Winnipeg? Because they've not been a 501c3 here before, is that correct?
Correct.
And so what's the implication of that? What will benefit them? What will that allow them to do? What's the deal?
I'll do that. Yeah, so right now, Winnipeg operates, been doing, the cable access service for years, and they've been housed in Monmouth, so there's a fiduciary, basically. So they have somebody who's paying the bills and taking care of things when we have an employee making that payment. So the idea is, and it's still an open discussion, if it went that direction, then what would happen is they would be completely on their own, so we wouldn't be the bookkeeper anymore. And then essentially you'd have kind of a dissolution, transferring assets, getting that part cleared up. Then once on an ongoing basis, it would just be whatever the city's agreed to put into that system. And then we would just write a check on whatever basis, and that'd be our only responsibility at that point. We would actually wind down the fund. We would just call that an expenditure out of the general fund and just call that good.
And then,
Yeah, and I'm actually in contact with Council for Independence and the university. It's kind of a novel question, how to transfer public dollars to a private
Yeah.
501c3. We're still noodling that one through. And then how to collect PEG fee and turn it over to a private 501c3. So it's a novel questions. I don't think it's a front burner issue on
No.
Independence and the university's desks, but we've had some initial conversations about what the options are for getting that done.
then the advantage of the 501c3 versus the ORS 190 is the ORS 190 can't go after grants. The 501c3 could go after grants and get additional funding for other equipment, for other programs, for training, whatever is necessary to do more outreach in the community.
I really wasn't related so much to the quarterly report, but it has triggered something that it's been kicking around for a while, and so thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to the project report.
Yep, so project report, that's the copy you've seen before in your packet. And the key thing is this is the first report for this fiscal year. So what you've seen is what we did is all the projects that were completed the prior fiscal year got swept out. So these are all either ongoing projects or new projects that have been put in there. And at a core level with the document, as you'll see when you go through that, is all the departments are still continuing to improve their operations, complete projects, take care of things. That's part of our operation, how we do business. Onto the council goals, good news there is that all the council goals are being worked on. So the City Hall upgrade, we have a discussion about architect services tonight and how we fund that. The path forward on the UGB expansion, we've got a housing inventory clean. We've taken that to the council to get basic direction on where we want to go with that, some options. And we also just got notice that we got a housing grant, so we're going to have some additional help on that. And then the stormwater funding, we're actually reviewing proposals as we speak, and then we'll get a consultant going on that pretty soon. The commercial retail portfolio, that was complete. And the transportation plan incorrectly says that you're going to talk about it tonight. That's still coming, so it's nice. And then just the citizen engagement communications and ongoing goal. So those are all kind of, you might see some new things there you flip through, and if you have any questions.
You know, one of the things that I'd just like to note and, you know, for future probably work sessions or something relative to the commercial retail portfolio development, while we've developed that, I think that creates an opportunity for us to try to develop some strategies to expand those opportunities, because they're very meager. They're very, very meager at the moment. And so the fact that we've got that is a great start, but, you know, I'm hoping that we can make a note down the track at some point to tease that out a little more and figure out how we can get more availability.
And since you talked about emphasize citizen engagement and communication, I believe we have an upcoming town hall, and I can't remember that date off the top of my head.
You can,
26.
26, 28, something.
Yeah, something like that. It's after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get the
November
letter.
28th.
November
We'll get the letter.
At
28th.
6:30 at the
February
library.
2.
Okay. Roxanne?
So who will be, since I haven't done one of these town halls before, who will be coordinating the agenda, the promotions? What's gonna happen, Scott?
So typically, we actually don't have an agenda, we've actually taken it as an open format, just to let people come in and just ask questions and go from there. Typically, we figure out who's gonna be there. One, we need to know if we need to actually, formally, if we have a quorum or not. And then typically, whoever's gonna go, they talk amongst themselves and somebody decides who wants to chair the meeting and facilitate. So that's probably something you need to do on the side, I guess. Unless people know what you're gonna do right now.
We'll take that up
Yeah.
in the work session.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's easier.
Yeah,
Thank you.
fine.
I just didn't know.
Yeah.
Oops.
I got one more, and it's quarterly stats. On the auditor's review, are you going to put this back out for bid again for the process for the audit firms?
We're looking at that. Yeah, we actually could possibly do an extension on the current one we have, or we could go out again.
Because I just saw that you had said that.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, one more, I'm sorry, but under Public Works, in sewer and recycled water, agreement renewal, stormwater, we're referencing consultants, hiring consultants all the time. Any chance we could lump those together?
With,
Well, I mean, you've got a rate review on, obtain a consultant to review the current rate compared with the operating, I'm on page 7.
right.
Recycled water, hire a consultant. Can these be merged?
No, they're different projects altogether.
Completely
So
different all the way.
the rate review is pretty straightforward. You're taking somebody and looking at all of our operating costs, capital costs, how you allocate across the things. The recycled water is right now, we take wastewater from our plant, we apply it to crops, and that's expiring. So we need to go forth now and actually figure out, one, what's the volume, what's the content of the water, how much, what could we go on it? And so this is a specific consultant that would help us with those volume and also the agricultural side. Because you have to figure out each one has a different uptake, that they have nutrient loading, and then the item is you put it on there and then the crop will take up the nutrients and everything. If you put too much on, then it just goes into the groundwater.
Right.
So we're doing those calculations, and then also we've had interest from our current property owner we work with, and actually in a couple others, to do different crops, but they have to be, you have to have somebody to back it, then you have to have the state approve it. The state is grossly backlogged. We can't get anything out of them. We've had to turn down a couple opportunities because they just can't get to us. But the key thing is we need to get this done so we can actually keep taking care of our wastewater the way it is.
Yeah.
But it's a very specific test. It's very different than a rate review.
I didn't know they were common enough there.
Yeah. No,
We should have
more
known
common.
the difference.
Anything else on the projects you want to? Okay. So that brings us to citizen comments. This is a time reserved for citizens to comment on items that are not on the agenda. Maximum 3 minutes per item, please. Is there anyone who would like to just come up and state your name?
Can I share something with you as well?
You can.
Okay. I'll give it to Phyllis so she can pass it out. Thank you, Phyllis. Hello again. You probably recognize me. I'm Robin Smith and I'm from Charter Spectrum. And the reason that I'm here again is because our franchise is still not renewed. And I'm hoping that maybe we could get this accomplished by the end of the year. And so that is the franchise as it currently stands, as we've negotiated so far. It's virtually identical to Independence. And they did finalize their franchise, I believe, in September. But one of the things that I wanted to just point out about why this isn't done is that one of the reasons that I was here was about a right-of-way ordinance. And so we were patient while the city created a right-of-way ordinance that causes us and other utility providers to pay additional funds to the city, and that's fine. But that delay also resulted in delaying our franchise from getting completed. And we've been trying to do this since 2013. So it costs us money every time I have to come down here. And it costs you money every time, you know, just that this is just going on and on and on. So the proposal is nearly identical to Independence. And I know that when I talked to City Manager Scott, that he's very interested in seeing PEG happen. Well, we would be happy to provide PEG, but one of the things that's required are the things that I keep putting into emails that I have copied also the mayor on, which are what are the anticipated needs for the PEG, and what is the access point, and how are we going to make that, you know, be accomplished. And some of those requirements are on the city to address and to tell us how they're going to accomplish those things. That's what forms the basis of what a PEG fee would be, not coming to, Scott keeps saying to me that it's $1 because MyNet already pays $1, but PEG works differently than that. It's based on percentages, it's based on anticipated needs, it's based on capital costs only. And so we can address those issues now, or we could address those issues later, which is what Independence chose to do, and go ahead and finalize the franchise with the proposed language or something similar to it that says down the road we're going to have a PEG, but we're going to need to provide, the city is going to need to provide some information, some studies to show the need for having a PEG channel, that people in this area really want to see a PEG channel and that the cost of that is worthwhile. And so my suggestion is that we go ahead and get the franchise done, have the language that is proposed in there or something very similar to it, and do what Independence has done so that we can get this franchise renewed. And just to clarify a couple things that I heard tonight, we do have gig virtually nationwide, including here, for residential and business now. That just happened, 41 states. And we also have a program called Spectrum Internet Assist that I went to Lincoln City recently and held an event to make sure that people there knew that we have a program for low-income families and seniors on fixed income to be able to get the internet for $14.99 a month. So those are some of the good things that we do. And that piece that you got in the mail, the Smart Cities piece, that's about trying to help cities save money as they go through technological changes that are just coming as fast and furious as we can possibly imagine. So I appreciate your time tonight. Don't anticipate that you're going to pass a franchise tonight, but I wanted to just come and say, please, if it's at all possible, to put the PEG issue over here. It's addressed in the franchise as something we're going to do down the road, but right now it's not possible to do. The other piece I wanted to let you know is that because of these delays, the transport pipeline that was available to the school got used for upgrades and lots of other things, and so it will take 6 miles of transport to reach the college again in order to have a PEG channel, and our construction people estimated that's $80,000, and that's the cost the city would have to bear. So that's my bad news for tonight as far as PEG goes. Anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Any other citizens' comments? Dean?
So good evening. My name is Jean Love. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Thoughts and Gifts Project. The Thoughts and Gifts Project is a 501c3 public charity, relatively new to our community. We opened our doors June 5th, and I'm here tonight just to bring continued awareness of who we are and what we do. Our mission is pretty straightforward. We celebrate the value and importance of low-income youth, ages 0 to 18, and seniors, ages 65 and older, on their birthday. We do this in a 4-part component program. Our first part, the gift that the recipient or gifts that the recipient receives has a max value of $30. We also include a card with a personalized message from us, as well as a couple of blank cards for friends or family to include a personalized message for the recipient. The third component, we want to promote literacy and make sure that our recipients have their own personal library, so we'll include a book with each gift that the recipient receives. And then the fourth component of our program really brings it all together as a full birthday experience, and that is to invite all recipients in a given month to our common monthly birthday party, where the youth and the seniors get to interact, play some games, have some refreshments, and then each recipient gets a cupcake with the candles so that they can have that birthday wish, and again, making that full birthday experience. We have one qualifier for people to participate in our program, and that is that the recipient must be eligible for federal assistance. Does not mean that the recipient uses federal assistance, but that they're eligible. So that would be something like SNAP, TANF, Medicaid, or free or reduced lunch. We do not ask for proof of need either. So as long as the recipient says the need exists, then we're happy to make sure that that recipient gets a birthday present. Our service area is primarily Monmouth and Independence. However, we are happy to serve anyone in Polk County, but as we're getting started, 6 months old, give or take, we are focusing primarily on Monmouth Independence. We do have an application process to where for the youth, the primary guardian or parent needs to complete an application on site at our location. We do ask that that parent or guardian bring some type of documentation or paperwork to verify the youth's age that has the youth's name and date of birth on it. Then the application process is pretty straightforward. For the senior may self-identify and complete the application, or can be referred. So if it's a spouse, a caregiver, a neighbor, then that person would complete the application. We are located in Independence, currently on 3rd Street, behind the historic Independence Library. We're in what you may know as the Independence Women's Club. They're officially known as the Polk County Service Club now, but they have been very generous to give us a location for free. And as an upstart nonprofit, it's a perfect price. We are there Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 12 until 6. We have a website, thoughtsandgifts.org. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us, share posts that you like. And I believe Phyllis has shared, we have the information card with information on the front, well, on one side as far as our program, and on the other side how people can get involved as nonprofits go. Volunteerism is amazing. We're a full volunteer, all volunteer board, and people making this happen. And of course, donations are always welcome as well, whether it's donated items or cash or monetary donations. So with that, again, I'm just here tonight to continue to bring awareness to the fact that the Thoughts and Gifts Project is here, and we're ready to serve clients. We've got a lot of great donations so far. Just wait for this birthday to happen. So there you go.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for heading this up.
Any other comments at this time? Hearing none, we'll move on to our business agenda, and item 1 is the municipal judge compensation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we have a municipal judge. We run our own court system here, and he's a contract employee with the city. And we have a base pay that has been adjusted for a long time. They do get a cost of living like the other non-represented employees. And so in this case, the judge requested we take a look at the salary. So I got comparable cities the best that I could. The idea was to get ones that are running similar types of cases. So, one court could just be doing simple muni violations or traffic issues. We got ones that actually did criminal cases, DUI cases. And once we got some good comps in there to work up, we got to a level of our current judge is making $21.41 a month. The average there was $25.69, but he was actually also kind of the lower end of volume. So when you try to figure out kind of volume, level of activity, that seemed a reasonable approach on that. So we thought we'd make an adjustment to that and then go with that $23.50 a month, which would be the new salary. I ran this by Judge McCann, and Judge McCann was supportive and would be appreciative of any adjustments he gives.
Any questions, discussion?
So, did he already get cost of living adjustment for this
As of
year?
July 1, right? That's where he got to the $21.41.
And that was what percentage was that?
Oh, we were 3.6.
3.6, okay.
Yes. And like I said, he hasn't had an adjustment for the entire time I've been here, which is 12 years.
But he has got a cost of living.
Yes, yes, there's no side, but not a bump like it's not a formal take away.
Well,
How much money do we lose a year on the courts?
Oh, the net.
100,000?
No, it's not that
Well, we lose. We don't even break even. We lose.
Yeah.
Our costs exceed the revenue that we get
That's
from,
right. That's
from
right. From the
tickets.
tickets and stuff, and what it
Correct,
comes
but
back to.
again, tickets aren't supposed to pay for
I
it.
know, but we lose on that. So if it went to the, this is the, if it went to the county, would we still get revenue back off those tickets and stuff? If we turned everything back over to the county?
No, and I think the biggest one we see would be level of service. I mean, we actually had this discussion before, a couple of years ago, when we were taking a look at where our budget was not in good shape, which we'll be having the same discussion next year. But what we talked about is at a couple levels, is one, you get very, very good personalized service here. We also process claims. If we turned over our court to the county, there'd be just less responsiveness across the board. You would have like local code violations that would not be considered. They would prioritize what they're going to look at, and a significant amount of what we now run through court would not even be processed. And so a citizen would say, hey, that person's got tall grass or weeds, we cite them, and it would be ignored by the county system, and nothing would happen to that person.
Just for a point of reference, Dallas did turn over their prosecutions to the circuit court probably about 7 or 8 years ago, and we took them back.
Okay.
Because they weren't getting the attention, the cases weren't getting the attention out of the DA's office. They've got felonies and major misdemeanors that they're devoting their time to, and not to the kind of lifestyle offenses that the city courts typically address.
Yeah. And then one thing we talked about too, that and our judges emphasized is a big one, is that, you know, unfortunately, we're a college town, and there's DUIs that come with college students, and our judge works with them, so it doesn't become a lifelong mark. If they were in other systems, they could be treated fairly directly, maybe even harshly, and that could become something. Our judge works with them, tries to work more with diversion programs. The fact is, we just got a high level of service here that we offer our citizens, including people that have had an offense. And we would lose that if we shifted.
Any other questions?
This is effective when?
Yeah, actually, and it's just a note, we on this, Judge made the request a while ago, so we'd actually take this, we'd actually retro it back to July 1, since it's been floating for a while.
Okay.
So the motion would be to go to $23.50 a month, and then we would implement that retroactively.
So it's an increase basically of $200 a month.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, Mr. Mayor, I'll move that the municipal court judge compensation be increased to $2,350 a month,
I'll
Effective
second
July
it.
1.
effective July 1.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Does this need a roll call on this one, since it's financial?
Not by any statute, it's
Okay.
whatever is customary.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Same sign? You're opposed?
I'm opposed.
Okay. So that passes 5-1. And we're going to move on to the next item, which is the City Hall RFP additional funds.
Yeah, thank you. So this is a project that's got a long history. If we probably go back to like 2011, we did a facilities plan, and it showed that pretty much all city facilities were deficient, but we've been chipping away at that. One of the last ones that needs some work is Public Works, which will happen when Power and Light moves out, and then we need to work on City Hall and then this building, Volunteer Hall. And so just most recently, we've taken a couple cracks at options. Lots of things are on the board that we've had committees look at, other citizens. One is like just a new building, just knock down the existing City Hall, start over, expand, renovate that. Do you leave volunteer here, or do you try to integrate these functions back into the other building? So the idea was we need to get an architect, consultants that know what they're doing in here to help us with those options. And the idea would be is if council gelled on one of those, then we would drill down further on that, really getting into the details of where you start putting countertops in offices and where the closets are and everything. This is a high level kind of look, but it still has to be pretty detailed. So we previously had $10,000 budgeted. We added some last year, but then we didn't carry it over, unfortunately, so we went back down to 10,000. And the good news is we got 6 really high-quality proposals, I mean, really good proposals. I talked to a neighboring city recently, and they went out for a similar project and got one bad bid. It was one bid, and it was high-priced and very canned and not very responsive. We got 6 really good bids. The downside is they're a lot more than $10,000. So to complete the project, we need to get an extra infusion of money so we can get the right company in here to do the work that we need. So what we're looking for is we have 10,000, we wanted to add 35,000 to that. That gives up to 45,000. And at that point, we could pick, one of the firms and then get going on the project and try to make some progress.
Any discussion, Byron?
So this would include that space needs that we talked about,
Yeah.
as well as the architect of the final product.
Yeah, so what would happen, roughly speaking, with any of the processes, they'd come out, complete site survey, the complex, look at any, we have documentation, people have already read the facilities plan, looking at engineering proposals we have on the building, what specs we have, and then they would sit down with staff and say, what do you do here? How are you using your space? Where are you deficient? Go through all the uses and functions, and then they would take that and then come up with four models for us. And so we get back to that 4, here's different ways you can do it. And so then what we'd hope is, like I said, the idea is that one of those would gel with the council, and then we would start working on that in more detail. So at this point it would be more, here's the rough square footage we need, here's the rough where the functions would be, and they just kind of compartmentalize those, but you wouldn't be getting down to, X, the space and that, and where the countertop is and everything, so.
I guess, where would this, let's say it costs $45,000, it takes the entire amount. Where does this project end? Does it take it through engineering approval for the
No,
design,
no,
or
this is
what's the
getting us
scope?
4 options, and then the council would say, I like that one, and then we would go to another level and get more detailed analysis.
For architecture?
Yeah, or at that point, that would be kind of the idea, obviously there's a window there, of even if you don't have like the financing figured out, do you want to have something ready? Or the other one would be, that you get to that point and you go, I just don't have an appetite for funding this, then we might not go to the next step. That's where just lots of options as we move along.
Yeah.
I think the idea, though, is we need to figure out the best way to look at things. And then a simple level is going to be just that new versus remodel issue. They could come in similar, or they could say, oh, wow, it's going to cost you way too much to attempt to remodel this building, so just don't even go there. And then we know that.
Roxanne?
And so in the staff report, you're proposing that we take whatever if it's $35,000, we take that from the capital reserve fund, which came from the sale of the building. And so, just to make sure, this would be considered a capital expenditure, so it'd be appropriate to take it from that
It works
fund?
now. We have a complication in that. Jan actually started doing some research on transfers, how the funds are set up, and what we found out is we set up that reserve pretty much as just a standalone reserve with really no ability to move money
This fiscal year.
this fiscal year. Yeah, because we said it, because the intent was, we thought we had enough money to take care of the state, so we didn't need to do anything with that fund, so we didn't put anything in there to move money. So if you did this, the mechanism we would need to do would be just use general fund reserves, and then as part of next year's budget, then we would
Transfer.
we
Got
would
it,
we would
yeah.
take care of the
Yeah,
transfer.
okay, well, that's important to know.
Yeah, and so it's all those things that just this, wasn't expected.
Ron?
Yeah, and this is what I asked for back in February, because nobody knew square footage, nobody knew how many rooms we need, and were we looking at 10 years, 15 years? Can we utilize this building, make do a little work to it, to get by for another 10 years to see where we're at? Because things are changing so fast in our system, but we're only growing at 1.5% per year. The city is only growing at 1.5% per year. So I mean, this was basically what I asked for, and this was one of the reasons I asked for the capital fund, was to be able to dip into something to try to get us ahead. To me, this is just a fantasy sheet that we're getting, but we'll know what our requirements are. That's what I'm looking at. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's pretty much it.
We're gonna get you a realistic take on it, not a fantasy.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, but we have an idea of what we really need.
That's where the
instead of
sense of scale, and that's the interesting one, when, like, a big one's, you get down to, okay, remodel the city hall, and then you want to integrate this building into that, you could look at that, and it could be ridiculous. I mean, to get the functions integrated, it just doesn't work, and then you go, okay, let's just leave volunteer hall where it is and just focus on that. Maybe, I was thinking we get you some windows over there, maybe we could work on this.
Laurel, did you have?
Yeah, the finished product for this will be a document with 4 different options.
Yes, yeah.
Will any of those options include an estimate of what the design engineering cost?
Yes.
If they will.
Absolutely.
So all 4 will have an estimate?
Yeah, so you would have 4 things, and they'll give you maybe some rough, what layouts would look like, height, scale, on the site here, because like one interesting one would be, there's lots of movement potentially. If you got rid of this building and integrated it, we could go into the grass area, punch back into parking spaces, and then this could become parking. So all those would be looked at, and then you hopefully get a good side-by-side of which one makes sense. And so like an example, if you had like the build new or remodel at the same price, then you might say, well, I kind of like keeping the historic character, why don't we just keep going with that? If one, if the prices are like this, that might inform where you want to go. But yeah, so you'd have 4 models laid out, what it looks like, and a cost estimate.
And a cost estimate for the blueprints and the
Yeah,
design?
what it would
But not the
take to do.
construction?
No, actually the construction.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be.
Actually, the construction?
Yeah, they're estimating
Okay.
construction, that'd be built into then all that level would just be built into the bigger project. Yeah,
Okay.
but we want them to say, just example, building a new building would be $3 million, say, and then let's say there's an option to remodel, expand, you can get that done for $2.5 million, and then you can go, oh, interesting.
Do we need for 15 people, 18 people, 20 people, what kind of storage, and all that kind of stuff, and that's what they'll give you on this deal.
And how long will it take for them to put this together?
Yeah, most of the proposals we have are right around 3 months.
3 months?
Yes,
Okay.
they're pretty good.
And when does the clock start ticking?
Whenever we sign somebody up.
Would that be tonight if we?
Oh, no, you authorize, we still need to make a selection and then work out a contract with them.
Okay.
I'd say, if we get it funded, I'd say probably within 2 weeks we'd have somebody go.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So again, John.
Just that, this first step of getting this project done, we've been trying to get done for a long time. This was a council goal in 15, 16, as, we've been talking about this for a long time. We've got to get this done. And to have 4 different options that would allow us to consider and shop to the public to see what they have an appetite for, which I think would be an excellent idea. And we don't know what the questions are, much less the answers at this point. This is the step that we've got to take, in my mind,
This is the
to
first
do that.
This is the first
Right.
step. Okay. Okay. So what we need to do is, we know that this is the step we need to take. What we need to know is, do we want to finance it? So, okay.
Scott, so we fund it, we get the study done, they produce the options. What's the shelf life of these options? Because what I hate to do is pay $45,000 and then we get to the point and it's, holy cow, this is too much, and then 5 years later, we have to sink another $45,000 into
I
another
don't think that would
study.
happen. I think your windows would be, at the moment, probably for a couple of years, you just do an inflation factor on it. You just keep track of construction costs.
But as far as the design and things like that, it would be
Yeah.
pretty, you could sit on that if you needed to.
Yeah, I think
for a
it's just
while.
getting you a general idea of what you're looking at.
Okay.
And I said the next step would be the more detailed. We really want a
Sure.
counter here, and we want 3 offices here, and
Right.
get to
Okay.
that level, yeah.
I want to make sure there's no expiration date.
No, I think that'd be fine, because
Comparison.
we really have that kind of the basic level where you are.
Okay.
Got one more.
Okay.
We paid the 45,000, we get the designs, they stay with us.
Yeah.
That's what, so this is what you're talking about.
Right.
It may go up 100% in 5 years, but we still have the basic
Right.
structure that we're looking at.
Mhm.
Well, I'll make a motion to add 35,000 to the City Hall, volunteer hall space needs and design project, which would increase the total available project budget to come from the general
Fund contingent.
contingency.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Did you get that adjustment to the motion, Phyllis?
Which would come from the general fund
Contingency.
I just have one more question,
Okay.
Ms. Cobb. The building, the construction itself is almost certainly gonna need a bond, right? Passed.
Well, maybe, that's
You don't know?
open
Okay.
discussion.
If we're talking millions of dollars, though,
It's gonna be millions.
okay.
We gotta look at something first.
I know, yeah.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, and this, because it's this large of amount, needs to be a roll call. Okay, so roll call, please, go.
Counselor Silvernagle,
Aye.
Counselor Belks,
Aye.
Counselor Schinkel,
Yes.
Counselor Carey,
Yes.
Counselor Sharma,
Yes.
Counselor Johnson.
Yes.
All right, and that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And now we'll move on to our third item, which is a request to initiate a street vacation in the 1500 block of Monmouth Independence Highway.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. The staff report for the request to initiate right-of-way vacation in the 1500 block of Monmouth Independence Highway. This property you probably know better as the S-curve vacant commercial property there. It's about, I think, 18 acres in total. Within that property, there are several, or two to be exact, undeveloped street right-of-ways, one of which is an alley. Another is an old platted street right-of-way, East Street, that the property owner has approached the city to initiate a vacation request to no longer make that right-of-way anymore. That would become part of the private property to be able to develop. So this is one of the steps as the property owner is trying to move forward to develop the S-curve property that may need to resolve to be able to develop that. The request tonight is simply to initiate the street vacation proceedings. So what that would trigger then was that staff would, in accordance with the state statutes that tell us step by step what we need to do in this process, we would give notice to adjacent property owners, give notice of a public hearing in the newspaper, post the property that there's a hearing considering the right-of-way vacation. So we actually come back to the council for a formal public hearing where concerned citizens would be able to testify before we make a formal decision on that. And we have a full staff report that would outline kind of the pros and cons and how it meets the criteria or doesn't meet the criteria of the staff recommendation. So kind of a two-part process here. One, if you want to initiate it, if you do, then we'll go ahead and schedule that public hearing.
And you do it by ordinance?
Yes. Let's see, I did put a map in there to highlight the two areas proposed for vacation. They're actually part of the old 1800s plan for the town of Talmadge. There was a town that was actually planned there at one time. So you can tell it's been on the books for a while. And I would be happy to answer any questions you might have about it.
Roland?
On the back side, it doesn't go through both properties, it only went to that one property?
Correct. It just goes to the property on the east side, but the property owner that owns the commercial property owns both of those tax
Yeah,
lots.
but I mean, it wasn't in the other side then?
Correct, right. And we would get into the merits
Right.
of the actual proposed right-of-way vacation at the public hearing. There's a staff report, but we know there are overhead electric utilities and a water line, I believe, that goes through there. So we would need easement if the council decided to vacate that.
Yeah, this is the old railroad, originally,
The peanut line, yeah.
historic.
Any other? Laura?
Just a quick question. You need to notify people who live within 250 feet of these properties?
Correct.
Is that anybody besides Warren?
Yes, there'll be several property owners.
There's a few houses in there, right?
It's not just houses, it's property owners, yeah.
Property owners?
Yeah.
Okay.
And a big
I
one
just-
actually is the mobile home park
Mobile
right
home
there.
park's a
So
big
you get that, a couple private property owners, commercial. The city of Monmouth will be
Yes,
notified.
you're right.
That's right, you're right across the street. Okay, all right, thank you. And it's 250 feet?
Yes.
300,
I believe so, yeah.
250 feet.
The city code's 250 feet. I don't have the state statute right in front of me, but that would just be potentially further out, that it wouldn't be any
Okay,
shorter than
okay.
250 feet is the minimum.
I can't imagine why anybody would be opposed to this, but just learning from the past, we might want to make a little more of an effort to notify people beyond 250 feet.
Yeah, and that's really, I think, too, to that point, the effectiveness of the sign. So just like the Carl's Jr. site had a sign posted on it that there was a land use action involving that property. We actually got several calls from people that may not have gotten a mailed notice, but they drive by it or walk by it or bike by it and see it. So,
Good.
yeah.
Byron?
Are there any concerns about, and I can see sort of that one that juts down in the middle of it that runs perpendicular to Monmouth Street there. I can see that sort of just interrupting the property. But the one on the south side, Bruce Street, sort of runs parallel with Monmouth Street there, and it doesn't really interrupt the property. Doesn't seem to be in the way of any sort of development in the middle or center of the property. Is there any issue that you can see of vacating that for like future plans, future street plans or development plans from the city's perspective?
So we would do a full analysis, as part of the staff report for the public hearing. That's going to get into the merits of the proposal. Certainly we've thought, about that before we brought the request forward to the council to consider initiating it. From a street planning perspective, the driveways have been set for the first property. You've probably seen where the two driveways on the north side of the property come out and the driveway on the west side come out. So there's not enough access spacing to punch through Bruce Street and still have that west driveway where it's placed now. So it can't come through according to ODOT access spacing standards there. And I don't even think there's enough room to curb it because the same Eskers property owner owns the rectangle shaped property right at the corner of Monmouth Independence Highway, and I forget what that street is that comes out, that dumps out on the curve. Is that Main Street? Or Edwards comes out here. So, we'll definitely want to look at pedestrian access and having some sort of pedestrian connectivity, bike pedestrian connectivity to be able to route folks through the property there, and potentially secondary emergency vehicle access through driveway sort of system. But from a street perspective, no, we don't believe it's needed to
So if we greenlight this and you'll do due diligence and looking through there, and if there's a need to retain that easement or whatever, that right of way, you'll keep it for the hearing.
Right.
Okay.
We would come forward with a staff report. So you're, just to be clear, the council's not making a decision to vacate it tonight, right?
Okay.
That's a future decision that would be after you hold a public hearing.
Right, okay.
And yeah, absolutely. As part of that staff report findings analysis, we'll go through the traffic impacts, the utility impacts, and if we find that it's not needed for example, for the street access, we would have conditions that say that there needs to be an easement created to protect the water and sewer, or the water and the overhead utility line access to those utilities. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you for all your work on this.
I move to initiate the street vacation process for underdeveloped right-of-ways located in the 1500 block of the Monmouth Independence Highway.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed signify by saying aye. And that motion passes unanimously. So that brings us to council comments. Are there any councilors that have any comments they'd like to make? Paul?
One, we've received over the last 6 months a number of letters from members of the community, and it kind of worries me a little bit that if we don't respond to those letters, these people may think we're just ignoring them. So I'd like to, at some point, have a discussion about how we could put together a procedure or a policy for letting these people know that we've received their letter, we heard it, we're paying attention to them. I don't know how to do that without, the noticing of a public meeting, that sort of thing, but maybe we can think of a way to do that if we all put our heads together.
And who's received these letters that you don't believe have gotten responded to?
There was a letter from Karen Cormack Jones, there was another one from Karen Wagoner, there was a letter from Richard Frederick, there was a letter from a couple of other people, I've forgotten the names right now. And I read these letters, Phyllis sends them to us, and I read them and I think, gosh, I went by Mr. Frederick's house, hoping to talk to him, but he wasn't there, and I thought, yeah, we ought to have a way of all of us responding and saying thank you for your letter.
Okay, well.
Not that,
Yeah.
we're gonna take up your issue at the next meeting, but just to let them know, we've received your letter, we care about you.
No.
Is there anything improper? Just when we get that to respond? and
No,
say
each of you
there-
can respond individually, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought it would be nice to respond as a council.
And a lot of those I've received, and Scott and I have talked about them, and Scott's had either himself or Chief Talon or
Yeah, we would just-
whatever appropriate
Or
department
like the
head.
sidewalk issue took a while to process, but typically if someone responds, we get back to them once the council makes a decision if there's something that's needed.
I just think it would be nice if the council could respond to these people that we represent. I mean, they voted for us, we ought to be responsive.
Perhaps it's something we can put in a work session.
Yeah.
Talk it through.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would emphasize citizen engagement and communication, which is one of our council goals.
Yeah.
The city of Salem is doing something very interesting with safety suggestions and sidewalk suggestions and corner suggestions, and I can talk about that. I'm on that commission, so I can talk about what they're doing to engage community. Community finds out what they're doing, what the process is, where they stand, so that might be something helpful.
Okay. Any other council comments? So with that, with everything we've got to do tonight, I'm going to read the script for the executive session. After I read this, I'll look for a motion to recess the regular meeting until after the Urban Renewal Agency and the work session. And then at that point, we'll reconvene the regular session to go into executive session. Everyone on board on that one?
I think
Okay. So November 6th, 2018, the City Council will now meet in executive session for the purpose of discussing labor negotiator consultations and performance evaluation of public officers and employees. The executive session is held pursuant to ORS 192.660. Excuse me, excuse me, oh. You're talking with the property owners? Okay. The executive session is held pursuant to ORS 192.660-2D, labor negotiator consultations, and ORS 192.660-2I, performance evaluation of public officers and employees, which allows the council to meet in an executive session. Designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. No decision may be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, we will return to open session and welcome the audience back into the room. It is not anticipated that action will be taken this evening after returning from the executive session.
Can I clarify that I, in error, put the labor negotiations? I don't believe that's on there.
Oh, okay.
It's just the
Performance evaluation?
Yes.
Okay. So we will not be having any labor negotiations in this executive session. So I'm looking for a motion to recess the regular meeting and then reconvene after the Urban Renewal Agency meeting and the work session.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, so we're going to stay right here to conduct the Urban Renewal Agency meeting. And let me get those agenda and packet together here. So welcome to the Urban Renewal Agency meeting for Tuesday, November 6th. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And would you do a roll call, please, Phyllis?
Mr. Carey,
Here.
Mr. Johnson,
Here.
Dr. Sharma,
Here.
Mr. Schinkel,
Here.
Mr. Silbernagel,
Here?
Ms. Beltz,
Here.
Mr. Milligan.
Here. And at this time, as for citizen comments, this time is reserved for citizens to comment on items that are not on the agenda. Maximum of 3 minutes per item, please. Anyone who would like to speak? Seeing none, we'll move to the consent calendar, and on this is the Urban Renewal Agency meeting minutes from August the 7th.
I move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that motion passes. So we'll move on to the business agenda item, which is the General Assistance Grant Application, New Life Ministries.
Great.
Director Duffner?
Yes, I'm back, thank you. So the city, or Urban Renewal Agency, received an application through the General Grant Assistance Program. We have two, if you'll recall, grant programs through the Urban Renewal Program. We have the Main Street Facade Grant Program, and then also the General Assistance Grant Program that we recently, the Urban Renewal Agency recently approved a grant award for Petals and Vines, was our most recent one, if you recall, for $15,000 for their front of their building, which has come along really nicely now. This particular request is from New Life Ministries. They're the owner of property located at 238 Jackson Street East, formerly the Monmouth Police Station. So this is a surplus property that the city sold to New Life Ministries not long ago. And the New Life Ministries has submitted an application requesting $4,000 to assist with half of the project cost to replace the exterior wood cladding that's around the top of the building. These are the kind of vertical slats that go along the top. Replace that with a hardy plank lap siding. There's some photos in the staff report that kind of show the current condition that's deteriorated and dilapidated to a point where the condition, if it's not repaired, then it will cause some permanent damage to the plywood behind the cladding that would also need to be replaced. So they're doing this in an effort to not only improve the appearance of the building, but also to give the building more life to be able to use that longer. Let's see. So the grant program itself requires a minimum 50% match requirement, which they would be able to meet with their $4,000 match. The maximum award in this grant program is $15,000, so they are under that. The criteria that's used for approving general assistance grant programs is whether or not the grant proposal would further the goals of the Monmouth Urban Renewal Plan, and those are outlined in the staff report. The staff findings point to goal number 1 for this particular project that would help promote the development of a unified and cohesive downtown Main Street sub-area. This property, as you'll recall, is positioned at a pretty visible corner of the downtown. It's right across from Mamer's Bed and Breakfast and just diagonal or kitty corner from the Main Street Amphitheater. And actually, as I was going out and taking some of those photos that are in your packet, I noticed as you look through the Main Street Amphitheater. There's some openings there, and actually on the right side, you will see this building through the site of the amphitheater. So it is in a visible location. By doing the repairs, it would definitely help the appearance of the building, give a little more updated look. And this building in particular does provide church services, but also a community gathering place for funerals and weddings. So it also provides a draw for bringing people to the downtown, which is what we're trying to encourage with our urban renewal goals. There's an estimate from the applicant would be using their contractor through their church to do the repairs, who is a certified contractor. There's the detailed estimate in the proposal. Staff is recommending approval subject to two conditions. One, that they sign a grant agreement prior to the start of construction, pretty standard requirement of the grant program. The other is one specific to this particular proposal. So with the grant proposal, they are again proposing to repair the top wooden cladding of the building, but you'll probably notice from some of the photos, the paint on the actual building is starting to look pretty faded and worn, especially on that west side that's getting that sun beating down on it, that hot afternoon sun. So staff is recommending that the applicants also paint the exterior of the building within 1 year to help complete that refreshed facade appearance and appearance of the building. And so again, they have 1 year to complete that. Financial implications, the Urban Renewal Agency has $30,000 budgeted for grants this year. 15,000 or half of that has been committed through the Petals and Vines project. So that leaves, with this project, if this project's awarded an amount of $4,000, they have $11,000 left for the remainder of the fiscal year. And with that, I would be happy to answer questions. I would make a note, we have a representative from New Life Ministries here. The applicant, Steve, is here, and I think he would like to make a comment, if he could, about the paints. And they also have this contractor that prepared the estimate as well, in case there's questions that come up about that.
So would now be the time for Steve to come up and make a comment, or?
I think so.
Okay, why don't you come on up?
You want his contractor to come up too, or just Steve?
Why don't you both come up, that way if there's any questions, you'll both be here and prepared to answer.
Steve McElravy, live at 1215 Madrona Street East, Monmouth, Oregon, and am an associate pastor at New Life Ministries. So we put this proposal in and then found out that if it is approved, it would require painting within a year. And so we wanted to amend our proposal. And this is Len Rowe, he's our contractor, so I've discussed with him the need for the painting, and he's going to outline what it would take to paint. You're talking about painting the whole building?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, my name is Len Rowe, or Leonard Rowe, Rowe Construction Limited. I do live here in Monmouth, 695 Warren Street South. And I do go to New Life Ministries. And as a residential / commercial contractor in this case, I anticipate the increase, since we talked about painting, to be about another $4,500 worth of labor and materials to do that, which would be added to the $8,000 that you have on that proposal. So just want to make sure we get it in due time, that apply to, for everything all at once. So no, that's right.
So are you asking to amend?
Yes, I'm asking to amend.
4,000?
Is that what we do here? Yeah.
So, I mean, it hasn't been approved yet, so we can definitely, the Urban Renewal Agency can consider that. I think we would want, before any formal agreement was signed, we'd want to see that written estimate, just like you did for the rest of the work, so you need to amend.
And it's on
that.
reimbursement only anyway, right?
It is
Yeah.
a reimbursement,
Yeah.
so it would, so if I understand correctly, you'd be asking for 8,500, or just half of the 45, actually, yeah, it would just be half of the 4,500 that would be.
2250.
Right,
6,000.
plus.
Yeah,
Yeah,
6,400.
Do our math correctly.
6250 would be the total.
6250.
Yeah, so it'd still be under the maximum award amount, and what's available, just leave funding for other projects.
And again, it's on a reimbursement basis, so you're not really approving that specific amount, you're just authorizing up to that amount.
And not to exceed.
Yeah, yeah, based on reimbursement.
I guess a question, so for Steve as well, so you would, instead of using volunteers from the churches you had mentioned previously, you'd actually be paying a painting contractor
We would pay a
to
painting
do the
contractor.
whole thing,
Yeah.
and not use volunteer labor?
Not for painting. There is some concern about volunteers getting up on ladders and
Sure,
you know, that
absolutely.
liability and all
Yeah,
that.
oh, yeah.
And the mean age of our congregation is like
Uh-oh.
50 plus.
Okay.
Hey,
It's not a senior project yet.
We don't have samples of paint colors.
Right, so the language in the report is to use a color that's consistent with the historic paint palette of the downtown. Typically, we've used the Miller historic paint palette color, not that you have to use Miller paint, but it has a nice diversity of a flexibility of colors that are still consistent with the historic district. But it would be nice, I think, if the urban renewal agency wanted to know, specific paint colors. That's typically been something that we've asked in the application as well.
Yeah, we'd be happy to work with the council on that.
Subject to
For the
approval by
urban
staff.
renewal.
Going here for me. So that would cut it down for the year, down to, for this next 7 months, we'd be down to $5,000.
Yeah, and just to clarify, that's what we've allocated.
Right, and we could put more
Monies.
in, right.
If somebody came along, we obviously
Right,
make a decision.
it's not the zero, mainly.
Yeah, we're not like done.
Question.
Go ahead.
Would you anticipate that in the future there might be objections from someone about mixing public funds with the church or religion?
No, in fact, if anything, we probably would have stronger issues if we denied based on the fact that it's a church building, as long as it is in the urban renewal district and qualifies under the criteria.
And it's the building
Yes,
itself?
right.
Okay, okay.
Okay, our urban, doesn't it go down Jackson Street, does it make a jog around the two buildings there?
Yeah, just that little nub right there.
Monmouth and that one.
Right, that's the only two that are in the,
Right, doesn't go on Jackson Street. On the north side of
Side of
Jackson.
Jackson,
Yeah,
yeah.
south side of Jackson is.
right,
Yeah.
the Norman Jackson's a divider on it, the middle.
So, for clarity, as we're moving forward, they're asking now for up to 6250
To include paint,
to include paint.
subject to approval by staff.
Okay.
Well, I mean, yeah, paint and labor, yeah, to get it painted.
Mhm.
Subject to color approval by staff.
Okay.
And is that still the 1-year timeframe, I would assume?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can ask the applicant, it seems like that's reasonable. Try
Yeah.
to give them enough time to get into the dry season.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we're gonna paint in the wet.
Or just tenant and put fans.
Right.
All right, any other questions at this point, Councilor?
Well, I would,
Or,
I'm sorry, I would like to be assured that we don't have any issues relative to Laurel's question vis-a-vis the religious
Yep.
organization, property owner, non-taxpayer, and then us putting it in. Now, as I look, I could find a secular purpose in number 1.
Well, we don't look at secular, it's non, we don't look
Not a
at the
criteria.
purpose of the building, the use of the building.
development.
Religious versus non-religious, that's not a criteria.
We just looked at the building is in the zone.
That's right.
Well, I understand that as it relates to this. Personally, I'm fine with the concept. I just want to make sure that we're on solid ground
Oh, yeah.
on that.
In fact, I would be much more concerned if we were evaluating on the basis of the religious use of the building or the religious owner. Yeah, that becomes an issue then if we're considering that. If we're just looking at the building and that it's in the urban renewal district and that it meets the criteria, that's the non-content-based evaluation that is appropriate to make.
Any other questions? So then I would look for a motion.
Well, I'll move that we approve a general assistance grant application for $6,250, not to exceed that, for the property located on 238 Jackson Street East, subject to the conditions recommended by staff.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I think I got another one, which I think 2 years ago, we gave a grant at Urban Renewal to the, I call it the old marketplace, to paint their building. It was the same thing, to update it, to try to bring it within kind of the general area, but we issued that, which I think was like $6,000. But I'm just saying that this isn't the first. We've done this to help make the building. And I look at the building as, in 5 years, they could sell the building to somebody else and do something other than a church. I understand the point of the building.
Yeah.
You don't have a steeple. That would make it easy for you.
Excuse me?
The building doesn't have a steeple. If you're trying to sell a building that has a
Oh, we could
steeple,
have
it's a little
the-
more difficult to sell it for a rent.
We're now at 85.
Yeah, you're pushing it.
Yeah, will you fund a steeple?
Any further questions, discussion? Hearing none, roll call please, Phyllis.
Ms. Beltz?
Yes.
Mr. Milligan?
Yes?
Mr. Carey?
Yes.
Mr. Silbernagle?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Dr. Sharmer?
Yes.
Mr. Schenkel?
Yep.
And that passes unanimously.
Make it look good.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking care of that building.
Yeah.
And at this point, I would be looking for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion we adjourn and go back to the red letters.
No, we're going.
Work
session.
That's coming back.
Yeah, we are, and then we'll actually meet at the back table.